40s.
Got it.
And the application deadline is every spring. The acceptances come out the following fall. So in this case, the applications the deadline is passed. They're being read right now. The decision will be made in the fall for acceptances in fall 2022 for admission in 2022. So who pays for it since the student doesn't and the club doesn't and the district doesn't? And the answer is that there is a separate endowment within the Rotary Peace Centers. And that's the committee that I've had the honor to work on for 5 or so years. And we have $184 million in that endowment. That's both cash and expectancies. You may know that Rotary recognizes that Americans leave our money in our wills. In Asia, they give cash. So Rotary is smart enough to accept both equally. And so that's cash and expectancies. There are about 1,400 Rotary Peace Center alumni to date, and this graph shows you where they're working. I don't think it's a surprise that a third are working for NGOs. The usual number in teaching and research. The number that really pleases me is 3% in police and law enforcement. Back before anybody had invented the term Black Lives Matter, Rotary was training our police officers in peace techniques. And I think that's really, really wonderful. So I said I would introduce you to some Peace Fellows. Kevin Melton is the first Peace Fellow I ever heard speak, or at least that I remember hearing speak. It was at a Rotary event in Boston in 2011. At that time, Kevin was on home leave. He had just come back from Afghanistan, where he had been working for USAID. He was about to go back to be on General Petraeus' staff. He's now in a senior position in USAID in Washington, D.C. But Kevin said, it's one thing. Oh, Kevin was doing vocational training for former child soldiers. That's the job that he just left. And he said, it's one thing to teach a former child soldier that he shouldn't use an AK-47 to solve his problems. But Kevin said, if that child is hungry, and if all he has is an AK-47, then that's what he's going to use. And my aha moment was that we can have all the peace conferences in the world, and we should, don't misunderstand me, but unless people on the ground feel basically safe and are basically well-fed and see a basically better life for their children, then the Peace Corps is not going to last. And that peace work really, really, really happens right here in our own homes. And so I'm so excited to be here. Diane's told me about the work in peace. And you know, you may think that in the big bad world, what's an anti-bullying project at the local high school, or what's a reach out to an immigrant, or what? But the answer is that's exactly what peace work has to be. That's exactly what it has to be. It has to be all of us doing what we can in our own hometowns to make our world a better place, which will make the entire world a better place. So I honor you for that, and I encourage you in that. I'd like you to meet Dr. Bill Schott often. I met him in 2015 as well when I was in North Carolina. And he's an MD from Iraq, 2015. He did his master's thesis on how you keep patients and docs alive after the accident before you get them to the hospital. I remember this is when there'd be a roadside bombing, and then they'd wait, bad guys would wait until the medics would come in, and then, 40 minutes later, there'd be a second bombing. So with a talk like that, I went up afterwards to introduce myself and speak with him. And I said something about his scholarship, and he interrupted me, and he was almost impolite. He said, it's not a scholarship, it's a fellowship. And I said, okay, what's the difference? And the difference to Dr. Bill Schott is that a scholarship is a transactional arrangement. I give you money, you go to school, done and done. A fellowship is a personal relationship. And as far as he was concerned, he was so thankful to Rotary for the training they were giving him that he would work his entire life and never be able to repay Rotary for the help that he had received. And I have had that kind of reaction from every Peace Fellow I've ever spoken with. Dr. Dilshad is currently in South Sudan doing medevac work via helicopter. He's giving back. I'm just glad I'm not his wife. Let me introduce you to Anne Reichert. Anne was originally from Scandinavia. She lives in Berlin. And Berlin, Germany, similar to our country, has an issue with too many refugees. Well, Anne is a human resources executive, and she has clients in the top companies, largest companies in Berlin. So she went to her large German corporate clients, and she said to them, "Are there any jobs you're having trouble filling?" And the answer that came back was a number of very high techy, sort of very specific jobs. Now, the refugees from Syria, they're not campesinos, they're not country people, they're city people, and some of them are very, very well educated. So she said to her clients, her corporate clients, she said, "Will you train?" And she lined up these young, mostly male immigrants who had just arrived from Syria, and she lined them up with trainers from these big German firms, and it was a win-win-win. Her corporate clients are getting the employees that they need, the former Syrian refugees are getting good paying jobs. She's now got Syrians training Syrians. And when you ask her what motivates her, she says that her great grandparents had left Germany and they were refugees. They were war refugees in Denmark. And as far as she's concerned, she's just paying with that. This is a difficult one. N.K. Ko, when he was in high school in Myanmar, in Burma, when he was still in high school, he was an activist, which probably wasn't the smartest thing for him to be. And he ended up being arrested and convicted of activism and sentenced to 10 years hard labor in the prison system in Burma. When he got out, he decided he couldn't live in his homeland anymore. He walked across the border to Thailand, which was also not the smartest thing because now he's a man without papers and he had no rights in Thailand. He eventually washed up in New Zealand, most peaceful country in the world, which took him in. And he, when he was in prison, he learned English. Another prisoner knew English, and he practiced the characters on the letters on the ground with on the dirt floor of his prison cell. So he somehow or other got his college degree, and he got the attention of Rotary, and he got his master's at University of Brisbane through the Peace Fellow program. When I met him, which was 4 years ago, he was back in Myanmar, back in Burma, and he was working in Aung San Suu Kyi's government. His special area where he was working on his PhD as well was combating corruption in the financial industry. And just to put this in perspective, several of his co-workers in that government were the generals that had been in charge of the prison system that he was on. Well, fast forward until February 1st of this year, and he disappeared. First, we heard he'd been arrested, then we heard no, N.K. Ko is actually not a common name in Burma. It was another N.K. Ko. But he's clearly a man, so we don't know him. I can't reach out. I'm sure wherever he is, the last thing he needs or wants is an email from America. So I've been trying to communicate via Evanston, and Evanston has been trying to communicate again through channels. But as of right now, he has not shown up. He's clearly a man with a price on his head, and he's a lesson that peace work can sometimes be anything but. Wherever he is, if you're a praying sort of person, please remember N.K. Ko and remember that all he's trying to do is work for his own country. I'm going to end with Lindsay Rima, the man that I started with. As I said, he's currently coaching multinationals on how to support people in customs in Sierra Leone. And this is what Littleton says about peace. There is no greater imperative than peace. None. If there is no peace, you won't go to church. If there is no peace, your university that is asking you for a donation will be closed or even destroyed. If there is no peace, there's no point in digging clean drinking wells or helping poor people set up microcredit businesses or providing educational resources for school children. Peace comes first. Without peace, nothing fruitful can happen in society. I've experienced it. So when I speak about conflict, I have lived it. War and conflict is not an academic subject for me. It is something I've experienced firsthand in all its horror. Peace is the most valuable thing we have in all of humanity. Peace comes first. Peace comes first. And I thank you very much.
Questions. Do you mind answering maybe 2 or 3, and then if we've got more, let's take a little bit more. Stop sharing the screen. So as shown and Dan promised, if you are participating via Zoom and if you have questions for Marty, please enter them in the chat. Let's start and see if there are any questions here in the room. Yes, Bob.
That was such an admirable presentation, so well spoken. But one thought that goes through my head is, with all your studies of this of peace, why do you think there's so much violence right now in the world that we are? And why are there so many wars right now?
For those of you on Zoom, Bob just asked a question that is unanswerable. And he said, why is there so much violence there? And why is there so much war right now? I am no expert. However, I have read from people who are, that in actual fact, there's less war now than in previous decades. It's just that we hear more about it. And whether that's true or not, I can't speak. Clearly, anyone.
Other questions? Marty, I've got a question. So can you talk to us, like, say if someone is interested in peace building here at the local level, they've heard what you said and they're like, I want to go help child soldiers. What is the best way to do that using the Rotary mechanism?
So the question is if somebody wants to apply to the Rotary Peace Center?
Or is a Rotary volunteer and says, hey, I want to do something to help a particular issue that Rotary's involved with?
The best way to be a Rotary volunteer or a non-Rotarian, but work with Rotary volunteers, is to volunteer. I just came back from, there are trips to Africa to immunize children. There's, I just came back from a trip to South Dakota to work on the Lakota Sioux Reservation. And there's our food pantries right downtown. You know, there's plenty of, again, we sometimes think of peace as separate from all these other entities, but it's not. It's all built together. I'm looking into doing some volunteer work with ILAP, which works out of Portland with newly arrived people to this country. So there's all sorts of opportunities to volunteer. As for the Rotary Peace Centers, if anyone is interested in the Rotary Peace Centers, there's plenty of information on Rotary.org. And I always say that if a student can't find their way through Rotary.org, they're probably not going to make it in the application process anyway. So believe me, it's all there. And if this club were to want to sponsor somebody, I don't know in this district. If I assume that you have somebody on the foundation committee who does that. If you don't, get a hold of me and I'll do the correct nudging and make it happen. But it's a wonderful program either for somebody here in Camden or for somebody around the world. Like all foundation programs, Rotarians and direct descendants of Rotarians are not eligible. We all know the reason for that rule. So none of us know the reason for that rule.
Conflict of interest. Yeah. Conflict of interest.
No, it happened. No, that's a good answer, but it happens wrong. The real reason has to do with the fact that the Rotary Foundation does report to a higher authority, the IRS. Okay, we're a 501c3. We're a U.S.-based 501c3, and as you know, the IRS thinks very poorly of charities that feather their own nest, right? And so there's the legal department in Evanston, 1.2 million Rotarians, and we're all giving money to this thing, and they're trying to figure out how to weave that needle, right? And what they've come up with is that Rotarians and direct descendants of Rotarians cannot apply. And it must be working because we haven't, to my knowledge, had any kind of an IRS issue. They do make an exception our lawyers do, and therefore Rotary does, for the graduate level certificate program, not the master's, the certificate program. If you're a Rotarian or a son or daughter of a Rotarian, and you wish to apply for the certificate program, you may. You won't go to the front of the line, you won't go to the back of the line, you're right in there in the mix, and if you're accepted, you need to pay your own direct expenses. The last time I asked that question, what does that mean? It was a decade ago, and it was $7,000. Okay, so let's assume it's doubled, but it's possible for Rotarians and children of Rotarians to apply for that program.
Marty, thank you so much. You know, first, I'd like to give you
Thank you.
the proverbial pin. But I think this is just a phenomenal way for us to get started again as an in-person and virtual club. And I'm a part of the group, and I am so beyond myself to have the experience of having you with us today. Will you be able to stay around afterwards for a little bit?
Hey, you're on. I have not forgotten your apple.
You're the first president not to. So we have a new raffle and a new way of doing things, so bear with me. We're gonna pick one raffle ticket out of the bag here, and they'll have an opportunity to pick a card out of this deck, brand new deck. If they pick the Queen of Hearts, they get the pot. The pot stands at $28. It's the first day. The pot will grow over the next few weeks, next few months. The cards will dwindle. The card that's picked today gets thrown out. So next week, we have a 151 sheets. So if we go all 52 weeks, the pot will be well over $1,000. So it'll get more exciting as the weeks go on. So any questions? How does our club make money? Half of the pot, so we had $56, half the pot always goes back to our club. So we'll have Don pick the winning number. Here we go, last four numbers. Drum roll, please. Go.
Last four numbers. 7486.
See, I didn't have that. All right. This is how it works. We spread the deck. Pick one card. 7 of diamonds. Sorry, no dice. Play again next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I believe Don White is our sergeant at arms today. And why don't you come up and figure out how to make our day.
No, as you know, my job is to make money for the club. So, since we're meeting in person, and for the people that are on Zoom, I can't get to them. How many of you are not wearing your Rotary pin? $1, please. Okay, the other is, if you're not a Rotarian, obviously you can't have a pin. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is, rather than go through a bunch of questions, I thought that it would be good. Today's speech was wonderful, by the way. Made more information than I can process, but somewhere along the line, it's probably been recorded. But we are involved as a Camden Rotary Club with a project that has grown from 1 and 2 days a week to what may be soon 5 days a week. And we're talking about people that need food. And the guy that is taking the program over doesn't get enough accolades. So would you stand and tell us about Meals on Wheels and how many volunteers you have and how many times a week you go out? Clark? And you speak loud enough so you can say, oh, she's going to give you a mic.
As a matter of fact, would you come up so we could be sure to get you on phone?
I don't want to see your face.
Thank you very,
That's all right, take an air.
thank you very much. When COVID came, Meals on Wheels deliveries went down. We had to reduce the number of trips that we were taking. We delivered the same number of meals, but there's a mix of frozen meals. Those of you who have volunteered are well aware of that. We went from 5-day-a-week delivery of hot meals to 2 times a week with hot meals and frozen meals mixed. We have now added 1 day back as COVID restrictions have eased. Hopefully, we'll be able to add more days in the coming weeks if the new variant doesn't throw a monkey wrench into the works. We all have our fingers crossed on that. But we're delivering approximately 140 meals a day. And we have just unbelievable participation by this club. I've said it so many times, I feel like you've all heard it from me, but I'm just so proud to be associated with a group of people that are this caring, and not only caring, but willing to actually do something and make a contribution to the community by driving and delivering Meals on Wheels. And it's not that big a deal. You know, it's like a 3-hour gig, even when you take the route that is furthest away from our kitchen in Rockland. We have some members of the club, and I'm staring at one. I'm not going to put my finger on everybody. Some members of the club who are making deliveries every week. Others who are making deliveries once or twice a month. We have a list that is large enough at this point that we're really not putting the arm on anybody to do anything, that I would consider an excessive commitment. We have, when we reduced to only a couple of days a week delivery, the demand for volunteers obviously went down. Those numbers are going to increase again. We certainly haven't seen any decrease in the demand for meals, but hopefully we'll need more volunteers soon. So we're reaching out to new club members to take familiarization rides, basically take a ride with me, get a feel for the lay of the land, see if they like it, see if they want to pursue it. And then, if they decide that they want to go forward after that, usually we do one other trip with Katie or one of the other Meals on Wheels staff people, do paperwork, make sure you're not an axe murderer, the basic kinds of security protocols. But at this point, I wish I'd brought my list, but I think we have 15 members of this club who are actively volunteering. And we're going to need more soon when we go to 4 and then 5 days a week deliveries. So anyone who's interested in joining this really incredible club of Meals on Wheels volunteers from Camden Rotary, I hope you'll do so. I should say too that we're reaching out to our brothers and sisters of West Bay, will be soon, to embrace them, bring them into the fold. And hopefully be able to do even more for Meals on Wheels and do something that I hope will be a constructive thing for bringing our two clubs closer together. So that's all I have. Any questions? Please see me if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Club. Cost everybody except Clark $1. All right, it's time for happy dollars and information dollars. And I'll start it off with an information dollar. And that is that the Camden Public Library is back in the book sale business starting on Thursday morning. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in the daytime, at the book shed, in the upper parking lot. And so anybody interested in finding a good used book, that's where you want to be. I'm putting $5 in for that announcement. And I saw your hand up, so would you please stand?
20 gratitude dollars, one Marty for you, for the generosity of your time on Friday and today, and for all the amazing friends who showed up today as well. I'm really glad that you guys are here.
Anybody else? Oh, come on, we gotta have more happy dollars, information dollars. Yes, Sandy?
I have a dollar to, I believe my phone went off during the meeting. I'm giving this dollar.
Yes, Judith?
I got $2 for two people who have provided the technical side for the meeting for our Zoom. And from what I can tell so far, it's thumbs up all the way, and thank you.
Jordan and I have some happy dollars here because of something that happened on Saturday.
Our son's wedding. Also
Yes,
got married.
it was great. The sun shone. Everything. It was a wonderful day.
It was a wonderful weekend. It's terrific.
Yeah. So
Happy
happy
happy.
dollars.
By the way, can we share the numbers of people that were on Zoom today?
There were 7 people outside the meeting. There were a few of us in the room. We had 7 people zooming in, and you can see that it's really useful for people who really can't get away from their office or their home. So we're learning. It's a learning curve, trust me.
Anybody
learning.
else with happy or information or sad dollars?
John.
Yes, John. You don't have to stand if you don't want to.
Oh, I will,
Okay.
if I can. I have $20. I'm so glad to be back among the living. That I almost wasn't for a couple of days. But anyway, it's great to see everybody here. And I'm so glad to be here. I can't say enough. Anyway.
Any more happy or sad dollars? Yes, please.
We have a nice relationship with 778 District 778 on the youth exchange program. We work together with the orientations and put the community together, and it was a good time. Sorry we're not doing that anymore.
Thank you. If there are none, I'll just tell you that the meeting is adjourned. We'll see you all again next Tuesday.